Ladies and gentlemen, we will come to order, please, with the Public Works Committee agenda. We have, as usual, a general agenda and a consent agenda. Items that are not pulled from the consent agenda for discussion will be taken on one vote. Are there any items that council members or staff need to have pulled from the consent?
2, 3, 4.
2, 3, and 4.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve that.
Second.
All right. Been moved and seconded. Those in favor should vote yes. Any opposed, vote no. All right. Thank you. So we will move then to item C2, please.
C2, resolution approving city participation in a drainage project across private property, 100 Sloan Drive, located in the Southwest Ward.
And Mr. Larson, you asked for that to be pulled.
These the two might actually be handled together because they're sort of the same issue. And I'm a little confused exactly of where city water enters into this and where private streams enter into this discussion. It appears that one project has street runoff water, and we're looking at repairing the culvert for that project. And the other one appears to be just a natural stream running through. And are we handling both of those as the same kind of program?
Yes, sir. Both of those. First of all, good evening.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Yes. And
Members of
Taylor. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Taylor, for the listening audience, if you would
Yes.
introduce yourself.
I'm Johnny Taylor, Director of Operations for the City of Winston-Salem. Both of these locations are just basic drainage pipe repairs. And so they meet the criteria as far as the ordinance. We're just going to repair the damaged pipe that's there.
It's already there.
Yes.
We can handle this offline, but I know we had a lot of discussion about over on Northwest Boulevard about a stream that was running underneath that road, and we went into litigations about that. At some point offline, could somebody brief me on the results of that? I don't think they ever reported back to council on that project.
Yes, sir. We'll have the information to
Yeah.
you before the end of the week.
Yeah, and can I assume then that this is a 30-70 split again, and do we have estimates of what the costs are on these two projects?
Yes, sir. Both of those are 70-30 projects. Of course, you're looking at around $19,000 for one,
Right.
and $32,000 for the other.
Right. And the owners have agreed to this.
Yes, sir.
This has already been approved by them. Okay, thank you. That's all. Only questions.
And either Mr. Taylor or council, if you could briefly summarize what the eligibility conditions are for this kind of project, since the question came up. Good.
Sure. Well, the 70-30 project, what has to happen is there has to be a determination that there could possibly be damage to the structure due to flooding. The property has to have had a certificate of occupancy for about 2 years, or at least 2 years. And there also could be a situation where there's erosion issues, as well as causing a situation that would cut off access to those properties. If those individual properties meet that criteria, then of course the city would be responsible, with council approval, to cover 70% of the actual cost of the project, no greater than $35,000 or less.
And when you say erosion, it has to, again, be erosion threatening the structure or access to the structure.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, in erosion in the backyard or erosion lower on the property doesn't qualify.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Larson, any other questions about C2?
So these are all piped, though. This is piping. This is an open flow.
Yes,
This
sir.
isn't bank stabilization. This is underground piping that is collapsing.
This is piping.
Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
I move approval.
All right. Is there a second? Would you?
Second.
Let me get back to my thing.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. It's been moved and seconded. If there's no further discussion, those in favor should vote yes. Opposed, no. All right, and that's approved. Let's go then to item C2, please. Three. Excuse me.
Move approval.
All right.
I can get out.
Okay.
Second.
All
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. If there's no further discussion, those in favor, please vote aye. Any opposed, no. And that is approved. C4, I believe? C4.
C4, resolution fixing date for public hearing on petition to close and abandon an unnamed alley off of Lake Drive located in the South Ward.
Mr. Larson.
Could somebody explain the difference between closing and abandoning an alley? And we have a number of alleys, obviously, in the city. And can we get a little explanation as to what this process actually means for that piece of land?
Good evening, Chairman Bessie, members of the committee. David Duquesne, Assistant City Manager, City of Winston-Salem. So the petition to close and abandon an unnamed alley basically means that we're going to take that piece of property off of the city's rolls, and it will revert in equal portions to adjoining property owners as part of their property.
Right. So this goes back on the tax rolls, basically, for the adjacent property owners.
Correct.
Right. And they have to file an application for that, and they've done all of that, and now it's just a process of dividing the land up with city approval.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. That's clarification.
All right. Is there a motion?
Yeah,
I move.
let me get back to my
Been moved. Is there a second?
second.
Been moved and seconded. If there's no further discussion, those in favor, please vote aye. Any opposed, no. And that's approved as well. Thank you very much. And I think that takes care of the consent agenda. All right. Then let's go, you're welcome, sir. Let's go to item G1. This is a public hearing on ordinance to rename a street or road, and I'll start. Go ahead.
G1, public hearing on ordinance to rename a street or road in Winston-Salem, Keel Drive to Kilby Road, located in the North Ward.
Sometimes I do that. Sometimes I let staff do what they're supposed to do. All right. And we will have a report from, yes. And again, for folks watching, if you'll introduce yourself and your position.
Yes, sir. My name is Matthew Hamby. I'm the addressing coordinator with Map for Site.
Mr. Hamby.
The Map for Site addressing team is requesting to rename Kell Drive in the North Ward to Kilby Road. In June 18th of 1959, a plat was recorded naming Kell Drive. There are 3 homes accessed off of this property. The 3 homes that are accessed off of Kell Drive currently use Kilby as their mailing address. You can see here where Kell Drive is located, off of Bethania to Vacaville Road. The 3 homes that are addressed off of Kell Drive are 1930, 1950, and 1954. And as I said, those 1930 and 1954, their mailing address per the tax office is Kilby Road is how they get their mail. 1950 is currently under contract to be purchased, and we have spoken with that new homeowner about the address, and they understand that the street address could be changed to Kilby Road. Notification was sent to the local post office, to the library, and posted in the courthouse, and all the property owners were mailed notification of the public hearing. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
It's pretty straightforward. Yes, Mr. Larson?
Yes, how did we end up with turning a corner like that and changing the road name? How did that happen from road to drive and drive?
The original plat from 1954 had Kilby coming off of Bethania Road and then turn into Kell, and it was named like that off of the original plat in 1954.
So Kilby Road was the original road, and when did Kilby Drive exist? Is that they actually they split the name up at that point?
On the plat.
My God.
Yep.
Yeah, as I understand it, basically it was split up on the plat, but nobody got the memo.
But nobody took the name.
Right. Yeah, and everyone who accesses any part of that little dead-end street simply calls it Kilby Road.
Correct.
And have always done that, yes.
Are there any citizens who might be in opposition to this change?
Not that I'm aware of. one of the citizens works in the tax office and is acquaintances with my coworker, and so she's always used Kilby as her address.
Okay. All right. We just didn't want to do something that they didn't want. It makes sense. It seems clear cut.
Yes, sir.
And so I'll certainly be supporting it.
Yes, sir.
All right, so we do for the public record, I'm sorry, yes, Cynthia.
As part of map precise, do you know of other instances that we are having to deal with like this? Or they will come on as needed basis whenever they're discovered?
How much time do you have?
Do we have a lot of streets like this where
We
the
have
residents
some.
are using one name and it's legally a different one, or vice versa?
We have some street names that aren't being used that change in the middle of the road, but there are a number of streets that exist now that don't comply with our ordinance, that like disconnected street segments and those type of things. But this was brought to our attention because the house in the middle was being purchased, and they wanted to know about the correct address to use, and so.
Sounds like we have a special project to adopt at some point in time.
Actually, there was, I think, a systematic sweep of a whole bunch of them a few years ago. They may do another one. Okay,
I'd like to make a motion.
hang on. We can't do the motion yet because we have to formally open and hold the public hearing and close it. So I will declare that the public hearing on ordinance to rename Keel Drive to Kilby Road is now open, and ask whether there are any public comments on this item. Seeing none, I will declare the public hearing closed, and now a motion is in order.
I move that we make the change as recommended by staff.
Mr. Buck?
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. And those in favor, please vote aye. Any opposed, no. That is adopted unanimously, and that will go to the city council as an action item. There will not be a second public hearing. This will be an action item at that time. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's go to item G2, please.
G2, Winston-Salem Transit Authority Services Update.
And I kept my mouth shut that time. And this is an information item, and we have our WISTA director with us. If you would, for folks, introduce yourself, please.
Yes, sir. Good evening. My name is Donna Woodson. I am the director of Winston-Salem Transit Authority.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So for the Winston-Salem update, you all received that in your packet. If you all have any questions, you can. I will be glad to answer any questions in regards to the information that was provided in the update. However, I would like to highlight a couple things from the update. First, I want to thank you. Thank you all for allowing Winston-Salem Transit Authority to participate in the Fare Free Day for 2019. It was a success. I will report that staff, as well as including myself, we rode several routes that day. Throughout the day, we rode with the Transaid as well as the fixed route services. The passengers were extremely pleased with the fact that they were able to ride WISTA for free. They felt that it was a privilege, that you all, the elected officials, wanted to appreciate them in their ridership. The ridership was not as high as it could have been. We did all efforts we could to publicize it. However, several passengers prepared to pay anyway. So we had the fare boxes covered with the sign just says, we appreciate our passengers and so forth and so on. So we had to stop them from paying. So that led me to believe that we need to make sure, if we are going to do this annually, that we start early with notifying the public so they'll be aware of that. And I'm sure that that will increase the ridership and get the participation that we're looking for.
We did get a bump in ridership.
We did. It was slight, but we did get an increase on Transaid as well as the fixed route service, and those numbers are provided in the update for you.
I noticed HART, the Piedmont Authority Regional Transportation, which is a partner agency, reported about a
30%, yes. They had a 30% bump up. They have been doing this, if I'm not mistaken, for at least 5 consecutive years. So that significant increase in service was warranted because of the consistency, as well as GTA and High Point actually started this year as well. And I spoke with Angela yesterday, the director of High Point Transit, and she said they had a significant turnout as well. So it was well received in the all over the triad.
I can vouch that people were aware of it. At least some people
Yes.
were aware of it. I took the bus downtown that day, and there was one of the stops a family got on, and there were a couple of smaller children in the group, and the father kept saying, "Now remember, we're riding free today. Everybody say free."
Yes.
And the kids would say free.
Yes, that was what a lot of the passengers. I actually rode the Route 105 and went to the mall, and the passengers on there, they were like, we can go in and come back out and then come back. You just ride over and over again. Is there any limit on the amount of times we can ride? I said, no, you can ride as many times as you want to today until 12 o'clock tonight, and then the next day you have to pay. So they were really pleased. So again, I would like to thank you on behalf of WISTA for allowing us to participate in that. The other thing I wanted to, it was not included on the update, but I just wanted to give a brief update on the next bus, because I know that was a concern as well with the council. WISTA staff has had several meetings with Next Bus, conference calls and webinars, so much so that they actually flew in for an in-person meeting the latter part of March, beginning of April. And that was a productive meeting. They have a new platform that they're rolling out in June. So they have promised to deliver that the Next Bus app and everything, everything will be upgraded, and it will be a lot better performance for the community. So we're going to see how that pans out, and we will continue to update you as that goes along and see if they can comply with what their contract demands.
Question, do we use live tracking of the buses on?
Yes, Next Bus.
Are those tracking devices on our older buses or only on the new ones?
They're on all of them.
All of them?
Yes.
Okay. I took Route 81, I think. 81 is the west side circulator, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not today, but a previous a trip that they last week once the Next Bus report was inaccurate.
It wasn't accurate?
Inaccurate. Yeah.
It was inaccurate, okay.
And I just figured it was because it was one of the older models. When it came around the corner after Next Bus told me it had already come and gone, which was just as well. It could have been worse if it had been the other way.
Right.
Right.
Exactly, but that's some of the issues that we've been having with them, and like as I stated earlier, they told me that once they do this platform update, that will correct those issues. Yeah. But we do have the Next Bus on all of the fixed route vehicles.
And I'm sorry, it wasn't 81, it was 103.
103.
103.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Taylor.
Ms. Wilson, I want to, first of all, before I ask my question, thank you for the work that you do. I mean, everybody's job is important, but you have a very important job making sure that people get to their places of employment, get to their families. So we appreciate you overseeing that. Maybe about a week ago, a little more, a little less, I participated in a town hall meeting with the Young Adult Committee for the NAACP. Mm-hmm. And inside of this town hall, there was a question that came from the audience about routes. And there's no secret that we've recently made some changes to the routes. And the question was, has ridership increased? And I answered that to the best of my ability, but I know that this is a platform that people also watch. So since the new routes have been enacted or in place, tell me a little bit about the ridership, whether there's been a decrease, whether there's been an increase. I know the answer to this question, but I just wanted to hear you say it.
That's fine. Yes, there has, since the changes in the route took place, there has been a decrease in the ridership. Generally, when you do a mass overhaul of your overall system, it's common to see a decrease in services. And it generally takes about 2 to 3 years for it to build back up and for you to see an increase in the overall system. So we're at that place where we're monitoring the ridership now, but to be honest with you, we have not seen a significant increase at all. Some of the routes, 87 of the routes that are more heavy, they are consistent, but for the overall system, it has still been a decrease in ridership.
But there are routes that have increased.
We have
I've seen
a
the
couple
data
routes that have increased,
okay.
Yes.
May I ask, what was the year we made the change?
To my knowledge, it was 2017.
That sounds about right.
Okay. Well, the reason I ask is I'm looking at page 1 of your quarterly performance report, and I believe that that 2017 showed the dip, but there has been a rebound in 2018 that appeared, at least for the first 2 months of this year, to be continuing to.
Yes,
Correct.
yes, overall, but overall it's still a decrease. But you'll see increase in some of the months, but if you average everything out, it's still a decrease.
Right, so there was a decrease from 2016 to 2017, but we appear to be in the rebound process
Yes.
now.
That's correct.
Do we have March figures back yet?
March figures should be on there, yes. The,
It's not here for 2019.
for 2019, it's not on there? Okay.
But they're up.
Yeah, I know that people do have to familiarize themselves with the changed routes and times, and it can take a little while if you're used to it.
Okay. I will make sure that we, that's an error, to be honest with you. That's an error because we do have March and April's totals, so we will make sure that we get that to you all this week.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
And, yes,
This is not so much dealing with ridership, but deals with shelters and bus stops. Can you tell me how we're coming in the placement or construction of new bus stops and sheltered areas for bus riders?
Well, actually, we went, some of DOT staff and myself, as well as my operations manager, we went out today to look at the Holland Avenue, 8th Street, Holland Avenue, and still trying to remember. It's 8th Street, Holland and 5th Street, and right there at the DSS, Department of Social Services. So we're proposing to put 3 bus shelters along that stretch. About 2 or 3 blocks in between each one. Well, actually, it's 2 blocks in between one because we had to meet Chelsea with the county out there to show her the area that we're proposing to make sure that we can get right away with the county because that section belongs to the county and not the city. So we were there today for those 3 proposed shelters. We have 22 shelters that we already have slated areas for. So we still have a long list to go. So I don't know the complete list, but I know that we do have our first phase, and then we're working on that, and then we'll go to the second phase once we get the funding and everything to go along with that.
Would it be possible for you to share with me locations, projected locations?
Yes.
Sort of priorities as to where these shelters would be
Yes.
going? A mapping would be nice, actually, but if not, just a location would be very helpful. And can you just spend a minute, since we've talked so much about Route 100, as to what your perspective is at this point on how that route has been adjusted and your feeling about the success or the stagnation of that ridership?
Yes, sir. I actually have a presentation for the Route 100.
I noticed.
Let's see if I can pull that up. You can switch it to the, yes. Okay. So what we have here is the current route for 100, but before I start with the presentation, from the Route 100, I know that prior to me, the Route 100 had, the ridership was extremely low, almost to no ridership on Route 100. And it had been staff's recommendation previously to actually eliminate the route based off of the low performance. However, once we have reevaluated and looked at the performance as it is today, we do see ridership on it. When you compare it to the other routes, it is still low. On average, you want to see as many passengers per hour that you can on a fixed route service. And we'll get to a slide in a minute that'll show you the passenger per hour. But this current slide that we have up to right now is the map of the current Route 100 that details where it travels, and then actually the table for the times that we service the community Monday through Saturday as well as Sunday. These areas right here, Haynes Mall, Oak Grove Road and Martin Street, Forsyth Tech main campus, Union Station, end of the line at Union Station and Haynes Mall. Those are the current stops along Route 100 that we are seeing the ridership. So overall, we have average per month around 300 to 350 passengers on the Route 100. So there are some passengers that are utilizing it. And anytime you see people riding, whether it's 1 or 100, that's someone that needs that service. So with that being said, we'll go to the performance measures of the Route 100, and this is just the year-to-date, the average ridership from July of 2018 through April of 2019. So that's the monthly ridership for each route, which you can see, and then the average passenger per hour. As you can see, that is low. So with those numbers, we would basically take the total ridership and divide it into the hours of that service that's provided, and that's how you get the average of the passengers per hour. So it is low, but we do have some people that are using the service. With that being said, staff would like to make a recommendation. Instead of eliminating the route, which we see that some people are utilizing, we are proposing to make a little slight modification to the route, which currently the route runs an hour and 15 minutes. The proposed changes that we're asking for, or for you to review, it's going to take about 15 minutes off of it. It's not a major change because we still need to include the existing services that we provide by the colleges and the Walmart and the different areas that we service. So we're currently doing all this route here, and what we're proposing is to eliminate the area from Milner all the way up through Stratford, that portion. And the reason we're proposing this, we're not getting any ridership in that area. So it's nothing we would lose by eliminating that, but some time. We would gain time for this route and make it an hour frequency instead of an hour and 15 minutes. It would still run the same amount of service, Monday through Saturday, 11 trips per day, and then on Sunday, 7 trips per day on Sunday. So that's what we are making a proposal for, and this is just basically restating what I just said, is taking it from an hour and 15 minutes to an hour, and there's just a decrease in the time and the miles. So there's no financial gain by doing the decrease, but we would still have the same amount of trips provided for the passengers.
Yes.
Any questions?
Yes. What is your average passenger rate for the whole system?
Average passenger.
But you're saying it's about one per
Okay, say for the other routes, the performance, the average is, it varies from 14 to 32 passengers per hour.
32 would be your max?
That would be the max.
And what route would that be?
87.
Which is?
I knew you were going to ask me that. Patterson. I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm still learning the routes.
That's fine.
You got time.
Patterson.
Patterson that goes from downtown all the way up to North Side, is that the Patterson route? Or, okay.
Yes.
Okay. And that's 30?
I do know it goes by North Side Shopping
35,
Center.
did you say?
32.
32. 32 passengers, okay.
Part of the reason, well, the main reason that some of our routes have such heavier ridership than others is because they serve areas that have populations that have a higher percentage that are dependent on transit.
Yes.
And we try to configure the route system to serve as much of the city as possible. And because there are people in all parts of the city who are transit dependent. And if we try to serve the city as a whole, we're going to end up with some routes that are inherently substantially lower in average usage than others. So it's a balancing act. We want to provide, and we do provide greater frequency on some of our most heavily used routes, particularly during peak demand periods. But we continue to provide some service to areas where the ridership is low in order to maintain service to the city. I had a question about, unless I'm breaking into the queue here.
I did have one more
Please
question.
go ahead. Please go ahead.
On the proposed changed route,
Yes, ma'am.
I used to be an avid bus rider, so I used to see things. But is there a bus that services South Stratford Road, goes by Thruway, since you're sort of taking that out of this one? Is there another way for people to get to the Thruway area?
Yes.
Okay.
Could I follow up on Route 100 for just a moment?
Yes.
And I'm a supporter of Route 100. I mean, it's been a long slog, and I appreciate you continuing to tweak it and refine it, because I do think it serves a geographical population that needs, if we're going to have comprehensive bus coverage, we do need that. But I do notice on your mapping where you show the bus stops, I don't think that conforms with reality of where the bus is stopping. I know there's a bus stop at Academy Street that's marked as Academy and Old Salem Road. There's also a bus stop, I believe, down near the Old Salem Visitor Center that's located. And so the frequency and the ability to get on Route 100 in that little area I know around Old Salem and going up into Washington Park seems to be more frequent than what you're indicating as the stops on this mapping. And I'm not complaining because I think it's great. I think the more stops you can, the more passengers you can gain. But as we look at the service areas and where, again, this goes back to where the shelters are and everything else.
Right.
There are actually shelters on Old Salem Road, for example. So could we kind of look at that and make sure that this mapping reflects where the signs are?
Yes, sir.
To have bus stops, and so we can be clear to the public where they can actually get on the bus if they're using these kinds of maps. This goes right through the South Ward, is why I'm thinking. I appreciate that. That's all, Jim.
Yes. Okay. So thank you, Tanique. Think you're looking at this proposal up here with the 10 o'clock, 10:08, those time points? Is that what you're reflecting?
I believe it's your map that you have on the board.
Are you looking? Yes. Are you looking at the time points? Or are you looking at the?
Has Main one arrow, one at Union Station, one at Main Street, one down here at Solid Creek, which presumably is Forsyth Tech. You know, you're showing these, which I thought were indexed over to your listing of stops, which list, I think, 5, 6 different bus stops, ridership 100. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You show 6 stops on Route 100 on this sheet.
Those are the stops that we have actual ridership. Yes.
Well, what I'm saying is that does not reflect the number of stops that are available on Route 100.
No, that does not. That's just showing you a snapshot of the stops that actually have ridership attached to them. We have several other stops, bus stops, as well as time points, but we don't have any ridership on those.
But at this point.
At this point.
And I want to be clear that just this would indicate to me that you've got 5 stops on Route 100, and that's not really the case that it is.
Okay, maybe my verbiage was a little.
Be clear that the bus stop system is much more comprehensive for available riders who may be looking at this.
Right, I agree. I understand what you're saying. I could have changed it. The wording is I put bus stops with ridership, but I guess I should have expounded on that to be a little bit more detailed. But I get it.
I think one of the things we have to make are buses available.
Yes.
And where do you get on the bus?
Right.
That's the big question. And whether people use it today or whether they use it 3 weeks from today to ride is sort of inconsequential. We provide a service, and that service is going to be as comprehensive as possible. Route 100 is part of that overall city matrix of service, and it has all these stops that people can get on it.
Right. Okay.
So, thank you.
Yes, I will make sure I provide that.
I had a couple of follow-up questions. I know that the original route design for Route 100 was created with a couple of things in mind, serving 4 of the 5 college campuses in town and connecting them to shopping, including grocery stores.
Right, yes, sir.
And the reason for that long run up Miller and back down Stratford was to provide connections to several grocery stores. It appeared that the current riders were not using the system for that.
No, not for that purpose.
Have you considered doing more of a straight run Union Station to Haynes Mall and back without the partial?
We can consider that was not a consideration, but we wanted to keep as much of the route as possible.
Sure.
Just to have availability for people to attract riders. So we just proposed this minor change just as a start. But we can definitely look at that option as well.
The reason I was asking about that is because I thought that if keeping, say, if there was any particular service point on that run up that you had in mind as a target, like the food line on Hawthorne, for example, or if it was just kind of a shortcut that would work. Because the second question I had is, I have recently had inquiries about a more direct connection to the Weatherwood Court area. Weatherwood Court. It's just south of Forsyth Tech. And presently there's no direct service there. This is as close as it comes, and to walk, there's a lot of very modest income, apartments there. To walk from there, it doesn't look like far, frankly, on the map, up to the closest stop, which would be, I think, Oak Grove Road and Martin. On this route and several others, you either have to cut across Forsyth Tech campus, which they get a little bit out of shape about, or you have to come out to Ebert Street and walk up a section with no sidewalk, and very little shoulder and very heavily traveled. So the inquiry that came to me was, is it possible to shift a route to directly serve Weatherwood Court? I don't even know if the bus will turn around on the little circle there, but I thought it was worth inquiring, and I just thought this might be an opportunity to add a little
deviation to the service and other population. Of course, definitely, we can take that back and look at that and propose some options with that to include that area as well.
All right, thank you. Yes.
One more question. Where along this route, since it's not coming to the hub downtown, how do you connect to other buses going other parts of the city off of this route?
Well, I know that they connect at Union Station. There's buses that leave Union Station and come to the transit center to and from.
But if I get on at Haynes Mall on this bus, but there's another bus at Haynes Mall.
There's another bus at Haynes Mall. There's several. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But anyway, I love the transit system that where you can transfer en route, go in another direction. So
yes.
I know we have these sort of special routes, but they're in that little loop. But I hope that we'll eventually get to a point where we can have a lot of transfers within the routes
city.
To
yes.
go to other destinations efficiently, and not with so much time.
Other questions? Yes, Mr. Taylor.
Ms. Wilson, I saw a map recently that talked about where the majority of the jobs were located in our city. And there was big circles drawn around the map, and then there was some conversation about whether or not bus service was going to those particular locations so that people can get from their houses to jobs and find employment and be able to feed their families. I want to particularly lift up the sort of Union Cross, Herbalife, that area. I know I know we've had meetings about it, and we're still in the process of maybe looking at it. But I just wanted to let you know that I was contacted by several citizens with those concerns. It isn't anything that we're going to be able to solve overnight, but I want them to know that's something that we are investigating, something that we are interested in. We have to figure out how we extend the routes, how we pay for it, and all that kind of good stuff. But I want those who are watching to know that we've heard them and that we are working on a potential solution to solve that problem, to get folks out to these areas so they can get jobs and feed their families. Is that your understanding of it as well? That
is correct. And to confirm what you have stated, that is actually true. I actually met with Herbalife. The HR person, she's actually retired, Annie Smith, and I met with the vice president. The president was not available that day. We had a face-to-face meeting at Herbalife to discuss their needs, and the challenge with Herbalife is their shifts. They start their first shift at 3:30 in the morning, and they end their second shift at 2:30 a.m. And then their employees have to dress before they go to work, so they actually have to arrive at least 30 minutes prior to their shift start so they can go to their lockers and change to their uniforms that's required. So that would mean that we basically, in order to provide service to Herbalife, we would have to basically have 24-hour service. And you would have to do that with all of the routes because you don't know where everybody lives. So in order to provide service to everyone, all of our routes, existing routes, will have to run pretty much 24 hours. So, of course, there's a large cost associated with that. And we had that discussion. I also talked with Bob Leak about that whole community out there because there's other proposed
Union
business.
Cross Business Park and several other areas.
So we've had conversations as well. And, he gave me some average stats that he thought of possible job opportunities in that area that may need transit. So we're continually having those discussions to see what we can do in order to service that area as well as others.
Well, I think we'd be surprised to learn that many people who live in the southern or the southeastern portion of the city do work out there. And I think it's important for us to let them know that they are being prioritized. It is a challenge, but when I'm able to tell my war stories, whether it's football or whatever the case may be, the best stories that I tell are the ones that were most challenging, and we were able to find a way to overcome them. So I'm happy to be able to work with you to address those challenges. Again, I know it's not going to be overnight, but I want people to know we're working on it, we've heard them, and we'll do our best to try to find a solution.
Yes, and I like I said, we did have that conversation, and I told them, you know, even if we see what it would cost or work out shuttle service during those times, because they do have odd shifts, that it's on the table, we'll discuss it, and we'll move forward until we get to a solution.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
One thing, if I can suggest a route of inquiry, the regional transit agency part has a van pool
Yes.
Function, and a lot of employers take advantage of that when you're out beyond the reach of the fixed route services in town. And I would encourage taking a look at that to see if that's something that it may not be what they ideally want, but it would be a functional interim opportunity and might turn out to be good enough.
Mr. Chairman, it's an option, and we like options. So thank you for bringing that to the table.
Absolutely. Other inquiries about the report? Thank you very much. And I just I would encourage members of the committee to make it a point to look for opportunities to ride in the transit system. We need an ongoing quality and logistics check. I lived in the Ardmore neighborhood for 20 years, and there it was a matter of, the nearest stop was rarely more than a 10-minute walk away. When I got married a couple years ago, moved to a different neighborhood in my ward, and now the nearest stop is a brisk 20-minute walk.
Very brisk.
With a high hazard pedestrian area in the middle of it. But I found a workaround. We have a bike racks on the front of every bus now. And there is another route that is almost exactly 2 miles away from my house with a good greenway shortcut to get there, and so I can get back to periodically monitoring. I took it today, so the bus was running well today.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I did have one more thing that I wanted to share with you all briefly. I have a visitor tonight, Mr. Clinton. Mr. Clinton is our web designer for the WISTA website, and through your direction, we had some concerns about the existing way you facilitate through the website and the challenges. So we have worked with Mr. Clinton and had several discussions. He's had some one-on-ones with some of you to identify any concerns so that we can make the website better and more user-friendly. So Mr. Clinton is going to give you a brief, high-level view of the changes that he's proposing for our website. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Let me just get this ready to go here. All right. So we were tasked with, as Ms. Woodson said, our goal was to make the website a little more leaner, a little more intuitive, user-friendly, able to navigate through the site a lot quicker. When we looked at our data and analysis on the previous site, a lot of the people going to the site was using about 6 clicks to get to where they wanted to go. So our goal was to get it down to 1 or 2 clicks so that they can go to anywhere on the site, and so we feel like this new update has allowed us to do that. So I'll just kind of go through this really briefly. You'll notice from the very beginning, it's very plain and visible. The main components that the ridership is looking for are routes and schedules. And this is something that we've added to the new site. It's the trip planner, which we're very excited about having that in place. All of the routes and information has already been submitted and is working with Google So we have connected with Google Transit, and so all of that information is there. And so I'll give you a brief example of that as well. And also being able to track the buses, and as Ms. Woodson said, with the new Next Bus updates, that would be more efficient as well. And then also the news and updates. And if I scroll down, you can see the fixed routes, the TransAid, and the mobility management. Those are kind of the hot areas that riders are really needing to get to really quickly without having to search all over the site to find that information. And so, again, we've got that down to 1 to 2 clicks on the site. So I'll just briefly kind of go through these really quickly. On the routes and schedules, so now the way that it's designed, we used to have to go to the routes and schedules, and then there were different categories. There was night routes, Sunday routes, Saturday routes. There was like 4 different categories on the website just to get to specific sites. So now when you go to routes and schedules, you'll see the listing all of the routes from Route 80 to Route 110, and it has a brief synopsis of that route. And so I'll just start. So now when you go there, you can just click on Monday through Saturday, or you can go to Sunday from this one page, and it'll take you to all of the information about that particular route. So for instance, Route 80, you'll be able to see the live tracking of Route 80 itself. So it'll go directly to Next Bus. You'll be able to see the live tracking. You can see it here at the top here, directly on that route, and I'll go back here. Same thing when you go to Trip Planner, you can be able to go directly to the Trip Planner and put in any information that you need for the trip planning. Again, all from that one page. Let me go back here. Also, voice dictation. You'll be able to click on the voice dictation, and we have an audible voice dictation that will give you the overview of the routes and stops on that voice dictation. Also, it is visual, so you can now look at this legend from that one page and see the main stops that are on that route. Also, as you go, you'll be able to go to the PDF and get all of the information on that route, all the details specifically about that particular route, and we're still just at one click, okay? And then also you'll be able to see the system map. Also, you'll be able to get a view of the times just from one click as well. So now instead of having to open up that PDF, download it, you can just click on it and it will come up in the light box there. And then as we continue to go through this, and I'll show you, and then again, we had separate buttons for the fares. We had separate buttons for all of this information, but now it is all consolidated on one page that you can see the fares for that particular route, and also the holiday schedule. And then if you need to go to another route, we have another quick links on the far right that if you need to go to Route 81, you don't have to go back to the home page or go back to those categories. You can click it directly from the sidebar. So if we need to go to another route, all the information is automatically there, so on and so forth. So that was a main goal of ours, to be able to get that information down to 1 or 2 clicks. And so with the new design, we're able to do that pretty efficiently. And so that's the routes and schedules. And again, I wanted to mention, even with the homepage, the site is completely mobile responsive. So whatever device that you're on, whether it is a phone or whether it is a iPad or some type of device, it would automatically respond to that device perfectly as well. Okay, and then.
Are you going to go to Trip Planner?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So that's the routes and schedules. So you can kind of see now how that is all consolidated, and it's a lot leaner for the site. And then when we go to the Trip Planner, as I mentioned, all of the routes, stops, and all the information has been submitted and is now active through Google Transit, which is really good for our website and for our city as well. And so on the Trip Planner, now you'll be able to go to, and I've already got the tab open up, and I put in the address 101 North Main, which is this location, and I put the destination is being 3320 Silas Creek Parkway, which is the Haynes Mall. So once you put that information in these fields, what will come up is, let me just pull up here, and I've got that information and put it in these fields here. And if you get directions, it's going to take you directly to Google and now you're going to see all of this detailed information, and it's pretty robust. Of course, it's Google, so it's pretty robust there. And so now you'll be able to see all the information that you need to make a trip. So if we were leaving here, it shows you 101 North Main. You're going to walk about 2 minutes to Liberty Street, and First Street, and you're going to catch bus 80. And then it gives you all the information, and it tells you, okay, bus 80, it's going to be 25 minutes before it gets there. Okay, and then it's going to tell you you're going to take bus 80, you're going to get to Haynes Mall, and then you're going to walk about 1 minute from Haynes Mall, and then about 1 minute to get to Haynes Mall from that bus stop. And so it's all detailed there, and it's just a great tool, I believe. And also it shows you all the stops. And if you also want to, and one thing I like about it too, when you go there, it automatically defaults to the bus routes, because you can choose the walk route, the drive route. It automatically defaults to the transit bus routes on those details there. So that's really cool. And you can also go here and see the routes and the time that it would take. So it would take 28 minutes if we left here to get to the mall, and it shows you the routes. And it also shows you the fares of what it would cost directly on Google's page as well. So that's a really big plus, having that ready to go and active with Google Transit for the trip planner. Any questions so far?
Splendid job, sir.
Okay. And then let's just go back to the main site here, and I'll just kind of go through this pretty briefly. And again, this is kind of high level in terms of the framework of the website. And as I've already mentioned, I've already showed you that you can track the bus page. So no matter what route you have, it'll take you directly to the next bus. It's going to ask for your location, and it's going to track you, and it's going to give you the nearest route and how many minutes it's going to take for that bus to get there on here. And you can also select what route that is if you're not wanting to start from the location that it is picking up. Also, news and updates. That's where we have all of the alerts, all the information, the announcements, anything that's pertaining to meetings and ridership needs to know immediately. They'll be able to go to the news and update page. And then, of course, another thing I wanted to share, just in terms of it being a little bit leaner. Previously, we had all this information up on the top main navigational, from the About Us to the executive styles. So now it is at the bottom of the page. It's a lot cleaner. You'll be able to access it without having to kind of go through a lot of pages to find that. And so we're very happy with just kind of the new design of the site, and I think the citizens will appreciate it as well. Okay. And of course, we've got our video about how to ride. So if anyone is unfamiliar with riding the bus, the video really gives a really good explanation of how to use the transit system.
Well done.
Okay. Any questions?
I do. Sometimes I'm not very, I don't find things like that user-friendly, and I just want to call somebody and talk to them. Where's the phone number to call
Yes.
for help?
Yes, that will all be at the footer, at the bottom of every page. And then there's also a contact page. So no matter what page you go to, we knew that is pertinent information. People want to be able to call. And so if you're on your mobile device, that number is also, you can dial it directly from your cell phone, okay? So that is on the footer of every page.
I'm just going to say that as a senior citizen, I like to see those numbers a little larger.
Sure.
and more visible.
Okay, absolutely. And with that being said, I think it's notable to know that we're also working with the Industry for the Blind. Mike Moat, one of their representatives there, he's been extremely helpful in making sure that the website is ADA compliant. And so super excited about working with those guys, and they've been very helpful in making sure that it is ready for ADA compliance.
Mr. Clinton, what is mobility management? That was the only question I had that wasn't intuitive on the.
Yeah, and you can kind of answer this a little bit too, as far as what mobility management.
Mobility management is our customer service representatives, the ones that are there to actually take the reservations for transit ridership, as well as ask the questions when they call in for transit information or fixed route as well. So they just call it mobility management. Most people call it customer service.
That might be a better word.
Perhaps we could just change the
I asked that when I first came because I didn't know what mobility management was. But I didn't want to just come in making all kind of changes.
Smart one.
So we'll get there.
Smart one.
Okay.
Customer services is,
May I say a show of hands? Who thinks that customer service would?
customer service is really a good one.
Yeah, customer service works.
Yeah.
Good. Your instinct is well taken, I think.
Right.
All right, but Ms. Clinton, that looks like an excellent improvement.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, great job.
Thank you. Any other questions for me? All
I
right.
think that's it. Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Ms. Clinton, Ms. Woodson, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson.
I believe that concludes item G2. We have item G3, and this is pedestrian intersection improvement priorities. This is an information item today, but will this be coming back to us in the form of an action item at a future meeting?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. After the committee has a chance to give its opinion on what Matthew's about to present, we'll certainly bring an item back adopting these as priorities and as staff's direction to move forward.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Bursick, if you'll introduce yourself to the listening audience.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, committee members.
Good evening.
My name is Matthew Burchek. I'm the Bicycle and Pedestrian Coordinator with the City of Winston-Salem Department of Transportation and the Metropolitan Planning Organization. So just a little background on how we arrived where we are today. Back in February, we shared with you an analysis of pedestrian crashes, decades worth of data related to pedestrian crashes, with essentially a heat map showing crash severity and crash frequency. At the April meeting, we took that heat map and combined it with two items. One, the signalized intersections in the city with details related to the availability of pedestrian signals at those intersections. So that was one of the layers of information that we overlaid with the crash data. We also overlaid with availability of sidewalks, so our sidewalk layer. Based on the discussion around that, we were asked to come back this month with information and recommendations about which signalized intersections and intersections in general would be priorities for improvements. So we used that heat map of pedestrian crashes. We used the signalized intersection layer, and then we combined that with our transit routes and the activity centers as defined in the legacy plan to come up with a list of intersections that we could kind of identify as priorities for needed improvements for crossing. We used the WISTA routes and the activity centers kind of as a proxy for demand. So we know there's a demand where there are transit routes. The people who use transit need to walk to and from the transit service, the bus, to their destination, and vice versa back to their home. So that was one of the layers of data that we used. And then the activity centers, those are areas of high concentration of jobs and shopping and necessary services for residents. So between those four layers, we came up with a good list of projects, which we then combined with a list of projects that we had compiled through citizen input and elected official input, and came up with a list of 89 intersections as a result of the combination of those two lists. And in the item, you can see they're broken into separate phases. So phase one on that list are projects for which we have designs complete. Phase two includes projects at signalized or at intersections at which there were fatalities from that crash analysis we had done. And then phase three are the rest of those projects. And we would certainly appreciate your input on those projects and the list in general.
Very good. This was in our packet. Hopefully folks will have had an opportunity to review them. What questions or comments do you have at this point? Ms. Scipio.
Just to be clear, phase one are the red highlighted items, phase two are the blue, and the remainder of phase three?
Actually, phase one are the projects in blue. Phase two is related to the fatality, the intersections at which there were fatalities, and those are in red on that list.
So this list I need to say, one is blue, two is red.
That's right.
And then the phase 3 are the remainder.
The remainder. And these are really in,
Okay.
besides those separate phases of the intersections that had fatalities or the intersections for which we have design work complete, this isn't a ranked list of need by any means. It's really just a listing of identified needs.
It's a candidate list as opposed
That's
to a
correct.
ranked priority.
But that,
Yes,
okay,
yes.
good. That's good to know. There, never mind, I'll just review and then my question I can ask outside the committee.
And, yes, Mr. Taylor.
Mr. Burchak, looking at the list of Phase 1, I noticed that there aren't any southeastern board projects. And I know it's not a ranked list, but I certainly want to do my best to try to elevate projects that I find that have a certain level of importance to the people in my community. At the intersection, I think there was a fatality there, but it's in red on the proposed priority intersection improvements. Item number 7, Oak Lexington Road and Walltown Street. There is a new speedway going in that intersection, and there's several other little places and facilities where the walkability is going to increase. So I would certainly ask staff to go back and maybe look at the possibility of adding that one to Phase 1. I'm not greedy. I don't want it all, but I certainly think that may need a second look.
Yes, sir. Councilmember Taylor, excuse me. Something in his water.
It's okay. Thanks for letting me know in advance. I might.
Yeah, don't drink it. Drink the
Not
tap water.
city tap
That's
water.
right. It's not city tap. That's what I get.
That's important,
Out of
Mr.
a bottle. The Phase 1 projects, the only reason why they're Phase 1 is because they're already designed and ready to go, and we would like to shoot them out and get a bid on those. The Phase 2 projects, the ones in red that we're calling Phase 2, are going to require some design work. But as soon as this committee gives us the go-ahead, we're gonna squeeze the trigger and get those moving immediately. So we're happy to wrap it into Phase 1, but I would just caution the committee that if we slow down the Phase 1 to add those things, it's not really expediting anything. But those ones in red, we have a known fatality at that intersection, and as soon as we get the go-ahead from all of you, we're going to go ahead and get that work started.
Yes, sir. And no one, if I may, Mr. Chairman, no one street is more important than the other.
Agreed.
And everything you've told me to date, since you've had your new role, has been true. So I don't see any reason why that would be changed. But you got to know, I wouldn't be worth my salt if I wouldn't be sitting here advocating for the people in my community.
Absolutely.
So you expect that,
Right.
and I'm just doing my job.
Yes, sir. You do it well. So,
Yes, sir.
but I just wanted to make that clarification.
Yes, sir.
We have the ones in blue we can get out to shoot right now, and as soon as the committee is okay with the recommendations that we have on here, we're going to get the design started immediately on the other ones.
Thank you, Mr. Decay.
Yes, sir.
Just background information for the committees. I've been hooping and hollering about this for
You have.
a long time, as you know. And honestly, the ones in blue, the Phase 1 so-called, because they're already designed, is reflective of where people were hollering. And so they're in the pipeline ready to go, essentially. In fact, some of them already were put out to bid on more than one occasion, and we're not getting bids because they were either too big or too small, mostly too small. And so the new approach that Mr. Duquesne and colleagues are looking to take is designed to package multiple projects for a single bid and make it big enough to therefore catch the interest of the larger companies that can actually do these projects. It's all designed to get it done. We have allocated from previous bond referendums $1.5 million to work with, and just in the 2018, I'm sorry, not in the 2018 package, but in the bond vote, the LOBS, limited obligation bond funding that we all approved just within the past 3 months, $2 million was set aside. So there's money there to do all the priority projects. It's just a matter of getting them going. So I was actually kind of hoping that it was on for an action item.
We're moving.
I'd be happy to see all of these projects move accelerated basis. One of the good news things about the pedestrians crossing safety projects is they're not high dollar tickets.
Yeah.
You can have a substantial amount of safety impact for a relatively low cost per project. So I think with the money, with the $3.5 million that we have in the pipeline ready to roll, that we can do a lot of this work in a pretty short, in comparatively short time.
I agree.
Yes, ma'am.
Got a quick question. It's an information item tonight. So does that mean that we have to wait until next month to make it an action item? Or can we indeed make it an action item tonight as a committee so that it goes forward to the council?
Let us inquire of council. We do not have a public hearing requirement associated with this.
We can take direction from the committee this evening to proceed if it's.
I'm not even sure it has to go on to council, honestly. I mean, the money's appropriated. And when the money's appropriated, as you pointed out, there's the original trough of money, the 1.5 we have not spent. That there are all those phase one projects are already funded. I think if the direction of this committee, we can lock and load. We can move.
I would recognize a motion by Councilmember Scipio.
I would like to move that we move forward with this this pedestrian intersection improvements as presented to us.
Is there a second?
Oh,
I would give a qualified second.
Very good.
It's a good list. I haven't had a chance to go through the whole list. Obviously, there are a number of projects. I recognize a few of them in the South Ward that we've been talking about for a long time, and there's a couple that are not on this list that I've noticed, and I would like to be assured that we still can add to the list if we make a motion tonight. If the motion tonight is to move forward with the blue list, the number one priorities, which I understand are already shovel-ready, more or less, designed, I think that would be appropriate. Is that what your nomination
that
for?
would
Is
be
that what your motion
exactly
is for?
what I would say.
I think you might want to say, as I understand it, phase one are the ones that are already designed.
Yeah.
Phase two are those ones that we've highlighted in red.
Right.
Well, we've got money for it. But phase two, if we proceeded with those now, there's still all the rest of those one on the list to come back to determine phase three, correct?
Yeah.
Yes, sir, that's correct. And I will commit to the committee that we'll do as many projects as the money will allow. We will continue to work on those. So if it's not in blue or red right now, you're welcome to add to it. And we'll take a look at what the data supports as far as that goes and put it on the list appropriately, and we'll design and build until the money runs out.
In fact, with the caveat that we can add at any time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If the council members would be interested in green lighting from our perspective, the blue and the red list, get to work on those. I think there would be nothing to stop us from doing that. As the city manager noted, they already have sufficient authorization to get moving on these. Just be a matter of whether the committee wishes to give the blessing to getting the work started. With that,
That would be, yes.
say blue and red.
Okay,
Blue,
that's what I was
blue
going.
and red.
Suggest a friendly amendment, but if you're going to amend your motion to include the blue and the red list, then I certainly can support it.
I would amend my motion to include the blue and the red projects and that the other items could be added on to for future.
Yes, come back. All right. For further discussion on that? All right, if none, those in favor, please say aye. If those no,
Yeah.
and we've got approval on that. Ms. Bursick, I didn't mean to cut you off. Did you have other presentation?
No, that was the end for me.
We did have one concerned
man.
citizen sign up
Take it.
to comment with the committee's indulgence. I'd like to invite Ms. Kathy Gondring. Have I got that name right? If you'd care to come forward and give us your name and address for the record and your thoughts.
Patiently sitting through the whole meeting.
As you heard, we are in the position to add to the list on an ongoing basis, please.
Yeah. Okay, so my name is Kathy Gondring. I live at 438 North Avalon Road in Winston. And I'm really just here as a senior citizen that's very interested in walking and appreciate the council's efforts to make it a safer transportation option for our citizens. 33 fatalities in 10 years is too many. I believe there are 60 or so bicycle and pedestrian incidents in the last 10 years as well. I think I've read someplace that North Carolina is number 9 in the number of pedestrian and bicycle fatalities. Winston is a great city. I'd love to see it become a greater city so that we have safe transportation options that are not cars, that we can walk and we can ride our bicycles safely. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you taking the time to do that.
Right.
Okay, Mr. Lawson?
Yeah.
Clarkson?
Could I, just a point of clarity, when we're talking about reworking some of these intersections, can I assume that that involves everything from striping to signaling to curb alignments, whatever's necessary to create an environment that is pedestrian friendly based on a variety of techniques that might be available to improve those intersections? Is that what we're talking? We're not just talking about striping here, I assume.
That's correct. Yeah, each intersection, these projects are context sensitive, so we will look at the needs at each intersection and design accordingly.
And sort of a follow-up to that, I would kind of like to track our funding on these and see how we're doing after a year or so of these improvements so that we can know how far we can dig into this list or add to this list or whatever. Just so we can track it a little bit, keep an eye on it. This is a priority, I think, of this committee.
All right. Ms. Scipio.
I just want to say to our public works area and Tonique specifically, although this road is not our city road, I am so happy that New Walkertown Road is being repaved. It's being a little, of course, little discomfort as they've graded it and we've got the uneven pavement, but it is so exciting that we're going to have a very smooth road very soon. And so on behalf of the residents of the East Ward, I congratulate our transportation department and our city, and we're looking forward to more resurfacing at anybody's dollar.
You go. All right, thank you. Mr. Taylor.
Yes, so thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Burchek, my comments are not directed towards you. You can stand or sit, whatever you want to do. I think I'm going to have a conversation with the city manager very briefly.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Burchek.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Garrity, I've sat on this council for at least 10 years, and I've heard lots of conversations centered around, the direction of the city, how we need to be moving with the way we deliver our services. There have been conversations about whether or not we should be in the parking deck business. There have been conversations about whether or not we should be in the Coliseum or the stadium business, no matter where we fall on either side. And I've heard conversations about whether or not we should be in the cemetery business. Most recently, I was contacted by Miss Priscilla Reed, who lives in the Morningside community, who had a lot of concerns about folks who might be middle class or below middle class and their ability to be able to get burial plots going forward. I think there are no more burial plots in our city facilities. And she was sort of concerned about the privatization of cemeteries. And she just sort of feels like, folks who might be poor, low income, or even middle class will not be able to bury themselves. And it will be a financial burden on many seniors and many families. So I would ask, Mr. Chairman, if I'm in order, if potentially we can have a report on cemeteries brought back to this committee. And if Ms. Reed and her neighbors want to come and speak to the council about how we should be moving as a city in terms of cemeteries, I think that's important that we hear them out. We've heard a number of conversations, Dixie Classic Fair, whatever the case may be, and so these citizens want to have a voice in this matter, and I wanted to raise this issue for your consideration.
Councilmember Taylor, actually, Johnny Taylor and I have already had that conversation. We were anticipating that issue to arise now that both of our cemeteries, Woodland as well, the plots are sold. So we will bring a report. We'll get with you and the rest of the council on options we'd have, in order to continue in that business as far as selling new plots. We would have to develop some new land, but we anticipate that question, so we'll bring it forward for discussion.
And I know it's going to be challenging. I mean, everybody knows that jails and not comparing jails and cemeteries, they are necessary, right? But nobody wants them in their backyard. Yeah. So it's going to be a challenging conversation, but I think the folks who will benefit from it the most are concerned about it, and we should be having these conversations.
Okay. All right, we will put that on the future committee meeting as a report and discussion.
Thank you.
Is there anything else to come before the committee this evening? Mr. McCullough?
All right.
Ms. Woodson? All right. Mr. Duquesne?
No, sir.
All right. Then we will declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.